Hi, I'm Ashton, and believe it or not, I have some opinion. You can probably tell by the title already what I'm talking about, but, first I did want to give you a couple disclaimers. I'm one trans person. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of us. I don't know math. I'm one trans person, and this is only my opinion. Although I have seen this opinion reflected in many other trans people, I still want to emphasize that this is not what every trans person thinks, and as usual, you should not take my word for the entire trans community. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about RuPaul. First, I kind of wanted to define drag in a way that is more open-minded than how you may typically see it. The typical, conventional, maybe even traditional, I would venture to say, vision of drag is normally a man, generally a flamboyant gay man, dressing as a woman in very extreme makeup and fancy dress and performing that way. However, this is not what drag is today. Drag is any overperformance of gender. Drag is just an exaggerated gender and a performance of femininity or masculinity in a way that is over the top and ridiculous. It includes unblended contour, ridiculous wigs, lip syncing, dancing, high heels, fancy dresses, corsets. Drag is not one definitive thing. Drag is a performance and is an art form, and it's a way of expressing yourself, experimenting while having fun. And that's what I believe drag should be. The most commonly viewed and commonly promoted vision of someone in drag is a drag queen, typically from RuPaul's Drag Race. And typically there's nothing wrong with this. The people on that show are generally fairly good people. They're incredible performers and entertainers. There's nothing wrong with the majority of them. I'm not saying all of them are perfect, because some of them are not. The host of the show, RuPaul. Everybody knows RuPaul. I guarantee you, if you've never heard the name before, you've seen him in a reaction gif. I have always been somewhat biased against RuPaul, as in 2014, there were a couple questionable things that he did. He cut out the use of the word in 2014, but previous to that on the show, they had a little theme song that was, You've Got She-Male. It's a really bad play on words that uses she-male, which is often considered a slur against trans women, as like a humorous, punny message. Not really the best foot to start off with in the trans community. She-male is like a porn category, and I have never spoken to a trans woman that genuinely likes that term or even respects it like a little bit. Also somewhere around that time, he had a competition on the show called She-Male or Female, and this is even worse than what I was talking about before. Like, he's not learning. In this mini game, contestants on the show would look at a picture of a woman's body parts, and from a single part of their body, they would decide, is it a woman or is it a trans woman? Because, you know, trans women aren't women. Sarcasm. Not only does it boil down every woman to their body parts, it separates trans women from women and even uses a derogatory term instead of just saying woman. Like, it's super insensitive, and I don't know how he got away with that, but he did, and that happened on the show, and as far as I know, there was never an apology for it. RuPaul has also defended the use of blackface by one of his show's contestants, but as I'm white, I shouldn't really put my opinion on that above the opinion of a person of color, but I still think it's not necessarily the best thing to do. And another thing he's done in the past, and again, this came out around 2013, 2014, he highly defended, and still does defend, the use of the slur tranny. That's the only time I'm going to say it in this video. From now on, I will be referring to it as the T-slur. In multiple interviews, Ru used the T-slur, and one interviewer did question him on it, and he says he thinks it's okay for him to reclaim it because he has lived the life of a T-slur. Drag and being trans are two completely different things. Drag is an entertaining performance where you glamorize yourself and put on a costume and perform and act as something that you might not entirely be. It's a character. It's an extension of yourself, yes, but it is not you. Being trans is not a performance. No trans person is pretending to be the opposite gender. We simply are the gender that we identify as, and there's no arguing that. RuPaul has not lived the life of a transgender person. He's lived the life as someone that has made so much money by performing and capitalizing off of ideas presented by transgender people. He's defended the use of other slurs too, although he is a gay man, but he's defended the F slur as well, which he can use. Like, I'm not going to deny that he's a gay man and he can reclaim that, but the T slur, in my opinion, goes a bit too far. As a trans person, I'm not even comfortable with the T slur, and a lot of trans people aren't. Ru has not transitioned. Ru does not identify as transgender. He performs every once in a while in a hyper-feminine way, and that shouldn't really make him able to reclaim the T slur. Now, what I've seen people talk about more recently is the more recent drama, of course. I've only seen one YouTube video on it, and it's by Petty Page. It was a decent video. I can't tell if it's just her accent and the fact that she speaks quickly. It does sound like she's saying transgendered people. She won't watch this, but just for everyone else, it's transgender people. Transgender isn't like a verb. We did not transgender, we are trans people. Don't say transgendered, that's all. Anyways, I thought it was a decent video, but there were some things she didn't touch on, and I feel like as a trans person, I can expand on a few things more than a cisgender person can. So anyways, that's my background with RuPaul. Even before all of this came out, I didn't necessarily think of him as the best person. Not my favorite. I made a Twitter thread like 7 months ago on why I do not like him. So I've never been the biggest fan of RuPaul, so you can take that into account. I am biased against him before all of this even came out. Even before this came out, I didn't necessarily view him as transphobic. Are things that he's done transphobic? Yes, absolutely. But as I can't be inside of his brain, I don't know if those are actually his own thoughts, if he was really just so blinded by money that he wanted to capitalize off of transphobia. I don't know. Anyways, the more recent drama was with him refusing to let trans women perform on the show, saying insensitive things about people's transitions, and making weird false equivalences, and also just a really bad apology. So I'm gonna go through a few things that he said in interviews and on his own about trans people. Keep in mind that he is a cisgender man. The first one that I've written down is, quote unquote, you can identify as a woman and say you're transitioning, but it changes once you start changing your body. It takes on a different thing. It changes the whole concept of what we're doing. So what he's saying here is he's okay having someone that identifies as a woman on the show until she really transitions. The thing is, A, not every trans person wants to transition. B, every single trans person transitions in a different way. You may go on and off of hormones, you may stay on hormones, you may not even take hormones, you may get 1 surgery, you may get 5 surgeries. No transition is the same, and there's no way of really transitioning. A large part of a lot of people's transitions are just socially transitioning, changing your name, telling people about your pronouns, presenting in a different way. Someone's physical body does not determine their gender, their identity determines their gender, and RuPaul equating, oh, you're still on the same level as a cisgender man until you actually transition. That's pretty transphobic. He also states that we've had some girls who've had injections in the face and maybe a little bit in the butt here and there, but they haven't transitioned. So the question here is, where does he draw the line? If he allows cisgender men to be queens that have had lip injections, butt injections, implants, whatever they do, why doesn't he allow women that have had similar things? He views these procedures on cisgender men as okay, but he views it on trans women as, oh, you can't perform anymore because you got an advantage. You shouldn't treat a trans person differently before they physically transition versus after. They're the same person either way, they have the same gender either way. You should just treat a trans person as the person that they identify as. And if Ru were to stick to the idea that women are not allowed to perform on his drag show, then he shouldn't allow pre-transition women to perform either. This is one of my least favorite ones. Okay. Drag loses its sense of danger and its sense of irony once it's not men doing it, because at its core, it's a social statement and a big F you to male-dominated culture. So for men to do it, it's really punk rock, because it's a real rejection of masculinity. If drag is a big fuck you to male-dominated culture, then what is so wrong with a woman doing drag? Would a woman presenting herself in a over-the-top, eccentric, hyper-feminine way not also be a big FU to male-dominated culture? Would a non-binary person dressing up as hyper-masculine? Would a man dressing up as hyper-masculine? Are all of those not mocking the standard binary of gender? Are all of those things not a big FU to male-dominated culture? Using gender and gender expression as something entertaining, there's nothing wrong with that. Gender can be entertaining. You can dress yourself up in hyper-feminine, hyper-masculine ways, and it can be extremely entertaining and really fun. But you can't draw the line at only men can do this. Here's another one. Peppermint didn't get breast implants until after she left our show. She was identifying as a woman, but she hadn't really transitioned. Trans people do not have a set-in-stone path of transitioning. Peppermint got breast augmentation, sure, but some women feel that their breasts grow enough from HRT, and some women don't get breast implants. Some women get breast implants and don't go on HRT. There's too wide of a spectrum. There are too many ways to transition for RuPaul to say really transitioned. Would he reject a trans woman that had begun taking HRT? I don't know. He might still view them as male. Drag is an art form. It's a form of expression and entertainment, as I've been saying this whole time, and it's not based on gender identity. Anyone with any body with any gender identity should be able to do drag, should be able to dress up hyper-masculinely, hyper-femininely, however you want to. Drag is about the performance. It's not about what gender the person playing whatever character is. Anyways, before I get to his apology, let's look through his Twitter for a bit. Here's a tweet where he says, on its own, no context, drag is a big FU to male-dominated culture. This on its own, without the context of the quote I said earlier, even more convinces me, like, people of all gender identities and all bodies should be able to do drag, because it's an FU to male-dominated culture, so everyone should be able to do it. Allowing only cisgender men to do drag kind of, to me, seems like it might be contributing to a male-dominated culture. Just a thought. Then there's this one. You can take performance drugs and still be an athlete, just not in the Olympics. This is in addition to with him rejecting Peppermint because of her breast augmentation, with him saying she could not be on the show anymore because even though she identified as a woman before, now she's really a woman because she's really transitioned. First of all, this equates HRT to performance-enhancing drugs. But somehow the injections in the butt and lips and face that many of the cis males have in your show, those aren't performance-enhancing drugs? Seems like a little false equivalence to me. But he also compares his show to the Olympics, which, like, what kind of ego do you have to have? The amount of pain and suffering and oppression that trans people face on the daily, nobody would go through that to get a advantage in his show. Not to mention that RuPaul's Twitter bio is literally, you're born naked and the rest is drag. So everybody's born naked, that's what he's implying. People, in general, are born naked. I don't know if there's ever been a baby born not naked, and the rest is drag. So, regardless of how someone is born, they can do drag. Regardless of how someone is born, they can perform in a hyper-feminine or hyper-masculine way. The hypocrisy here is just, I don't understand. Like, what does he... This tweet, in the 10 years we've been casting Drag Race, the only thing we've ever screened for is charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, and that will never change. If that's genuinely the only thing you screen for, why have there been no trans men on the show? Why don't you allow trans women on the show once they really transition? Why is the show full of cis men? Why is the show full of cis men and the occasional non-binary person? I would love to know. The funniest part about this tweet is the image that he attached. I don't know what he thinks this is, because it's not related to the tweet, but if you reverse Google image search it, it's actually a painting called Train Landscape by Ellsworth Kelly. First of all, he didn't credit the artist at all, which is a personal pet peeve, but I'm not going to get into that. The theory here is that a lot of people are joking that RuPaul looked up the trans flag, but looked up train instead of trans, and he got this, and he was like, yeah, that's the trans flag. I would call this a train wreck, if you will. Anyways, if that's not what happened, then the image is completely unrelated, and I don't know why he attached it, but I really hope that he looked up train flag and got that and thought that was genuinely the trans flag, because if that doesn't show you how ignorant he is about his own community, I don't know what will. The truth is that drag is for everyone. You can do drag in any way that you want. That's the point. You're supposed to be able to express yourself in unconventional ways. That's what drag is, and excluding trans women from drag is not going to help with doing that. So, is RuPaul transphobic? I would venture to say yes. Of course, as I said earlier, I am one trans person, and me saying that I think a lot of the things that Ru has said are transphobic, ignorant, bigoted, whatever you want to call it. That doesn't mean the entire trans community thinks that, but that's just me, and that's the way I view it. Also, can we talk about his apology? Each morning, I pray to set aside everything I think I know, so I may have an open mind and a new experience. I understand and regret the hurt I have caused. The trans community are heroes of our shared LGBTQ movement. You are my teachers. If we're your teachers, then why the fuck will you not let a trans woman on your show? Why won't you listen to the trans women that have been on your show, that have explained to you that the physical transition is not what makes someone trans? I think that if RuPaul really wants to recover from this, he should listen to trans women, maybe. I don't know, sounds like a good idea to me. He should more fully and wholeheartedly apologize for the scandals that were happening in 2014. He should understand that drag comes from gender nonconformity, and it comes from trans people, and it doesn't belong to gay cis men. Drag is overexpression and performance and entertainment, exaggerated gender roles, and limiting that to only letting cis men perform on, you know, only the biggest drag race on TV. Oh, I'm sorry, the Olympics of drag. That seems kind of exclusionary to me. Let me know what you guys think, but as of right now, I cannot support RuPaul in any way, shape, or form. It really sucks seeing someone that is seen as such a vibrant member of the LGBT community being like this, but I don't know if he'll learn his lesson. At this point, I really don't. Anyways, he has technically apologized, but as a trans person, I can't accept that. He has to learn and prove that he's learned before I genuinely will accept an apology. An informal spur-of-the-moment tweet is not an apology. I hope that wasn't too much of a dramatic video. I don't like getting into drama, but I feel that as a trans person, I do have like not a right, I guess a right. I do have like a certain weight on the issue. I don't know how to explain it. I hope that you're able to express your gender or overexpress your gender or perform absolutely ridiculously overexpressed genders in any way you want, no matter your body, no matter your sex assigned at birth, no matter your gender identity. None of those things matter. You can do drag. Fuck RuPaul. And I will talk to you later, maybe.